Alright, we're gonna get started then. So, today, talking about transforming linear equations. I think the easiest way for us to do that is just to work some of these examples, because some of it's kind of strange. So, one thing you have to understand is you have to remember what slope-intercept form is. So you've got y equals mx plus b. Okay, and when you're looking at slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, you have to remember that the m is the slope and the b is the y-intercept. Like, that's where you got to start. Okay, so in this first part, okay, we're going to go through and we're going to work some of the odd questions, alright, and then you're going to go back and do the evens on your homework. So, it says in exercises 1 through 4, the graph of f of x equals x plus 2 is graphed. They just wrote it in function notation, it's not any different. So, if this f of x was a y, it's the same thing. So, y equals x plus 2. Okay, so that's the line that's graphed. It's graphed on all 4 of them. Okay, now it says graph 2 more functions in the same family for which the parameter being changed is the y-intercept. Okay, so when it uses the word parameter, like the parameter being changed, it's talking about either the slope is going to be changed or the y-intercept is going to be changed. Those are your two parameters. Okay, one of those two things. Okay, the slope or the y-intercept. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so in this case, it says graph 2 more functions in the same family for which the parameter being changed is the y-intercept. Okay, so if I'm changing the y-intercept, that means what is staying the same?
The slope.
The slope. So the slope of this line is just 1, right? Because it's x plus 2. Okay, so if my slope is 1, all I have to do to answer this question correctly is just change the y-intercept. So you can change it to literally anything that you want that'll fit on the graph. So if I want to change it to 8, okay, I can change it to 8, and then I go up 1 and over 1, because that is the slope that I have to use. I just draw my line. Now, here's the other thing that people mess up all the time, and I really don't know why. It says graph 2. Graph 2 of them. So if you only graph one line, you have no chance to be right. Like, you got to graph 2. Alright, so I can pick another y-intercept. Maybe I'll go down here to -4. Like, you could literally go wherever you want. And you're going to go up 1 and over 1. And down 1 and left 1. And you're all second line. So now I have 2 lines graphed, a red one and a blue one. Okay, where the parameter that's the same is the slope. The parameter that's different is the y-intercept. Okay, yours could be the same as mine or yours could be different than mine. Okay, now we're going to go down to question number 3. Question number 3 says, graph 2 or more functions in the same family for which the parameter being changed is the slope m and is between 0 and 1. Okay, is the slope m, or the slope m is between 0 and 1. Alright, now let's just think for a second. What is the slope of this line that's currently up here? 1, right? What is the slope if, or what does the line look like if I have a slope of 0? What kind of line is it?
Flat.
All lines are flat, all lines are straight. What does this mean?
Horizontal.
All y'all started doing this, but that, like, you gotta have a word for that. Okay, horizontal. Okay, so a 0 slope would be horizontal like this, right? So that black line is not part of the answer, it's just part of me figuring it out. So if I have a 0 slope, then that's a horizontal line. This line that's already drawn, the slope is 1. Does everybody understand that? Now, this should be fairly simple at this point. They want me to graph 2 more functions in the same family for which the parameter being changed is the slope. And they want the slope to be between 0 and 1. So all you have to do is draw 2 lines that are going to have the same y-intercept, because that's not changing. The only thing I'm changing is the slope. But the slopes have to be between 0 and 1. You can count them out, you can actually know what they are, or you can just draw 2 random lines. It doesn't really matter. Okay? The only thing that has to be true is it has to be between 0 and 1. Okay? So you can literally just take your pen or pencil or whatever and just draw a straight line. And as long as it goes between the 0 slope and the 1 slope, you're good. And then you can draw a second one. If you want to take the time to count it out, okay, you're going to have to count fractions, because those are the numbers between 0 and 1, right? So if you want to go up 1 and over 2 and actually plot the points, or if you want to go up 2 and over 3, or up 1 and over 3, or up 1 and over 4, you could pick any fraction you want as long as it's a regular old fraction. Jared?
So you don't need to write down what your slope is going to be?
No, it doesn't tell us to write it down. It just says graph them. If you want to write it down, you can. If that helps you, if that makes more sense to you, then that's fine, but you don't have to. Okay? So make sure on all of these, okay, that you read what they want you to change. If they want you to change the slope, just change the slope and don't mess with the y-intercept. If they want you to change the y-intercept, then just change the y-intercept and don't mess with the slope. If they tell you to change both, well then you can change both, but I don't think they do that anywhere. Alright, any questions on that? Alright, now, number 5. If you have your book, looking at number 5 in your book is probably going to be a little bit more helpful. Only because there's colors. If you don't have your book, or if you just think you're fine without it, then that's fine. But if you have your book, it'll be in nice pretty colors and make your life a little bit simpler. Okay? It says, the graph of the parent linear function f of x equals x is shown in black on the coordinate grid. Okay? So, we can talk about what a parent function is. If you have, here's my clicker. Okay? If you have a parent function, the parent function of the linear family, okay, linear means we're going to graph a straight line, is y equals x. Because this is the most simple line that you could ever draw. Because what's the y-intercept?
Okay. Oh,
B.
0.
0. Okay, the b is 0. There's nothing over here. Okay, and what's the slope? 1. So you're counting up 1 and right 1, up 1 and right 1. So this is the easiest line you could ever draw because the y-intercept is 0 and the slope is 1. Alright? So you're going up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1. Okay? So this is the parent function. It's the easiest function. It's where all other lines come from. They all start with this. Okay, and then the slope may change, or the y-intercept may change, but that's why it's called the parent function. It's the easiest, simplest one. It's where all the other lines come from. Alright? So, if we're looking at that graph, okay, they said that they drew it for us in black. So that is right here in the middle. and it's labeled f of x. Can everybody see the label right here, f of x? Alright, now, it asks us to write the function that represents this function with the indicated parameter changes. Okay, the indicated parameter changes. So, the first thing they ask us is for the m increased, but the b is unchanged. So the m represents what? Slope. The b represents what? Y-intercept. So the y-intercept has to be the same. The slope is going to be bigger. Okay, bigger than 1. Which means it's going to be steeper. Okay, it's going to rise faster. It's going to be more steep. Okay, so which line up here has the same y-intercept, so it's going through the origin, but it's steeper?
GX.
GX. Okay, so I'll try and draw it in red here. I don't know what color it would be in your book, but if you were looking at a book, green, okay, then it makes it nice and easy to see. I don't have a green marker, at least out. Okay, so I would write g of x right there. Okay, now, part B says m is decreased and b is unchanged.
B. What on B? MX?
Okay, mx, yes. Does everybody see mx? Okay, so it's still got to go through the origin, but now the line is going to be less steep. Okay. And what color is that one in the book?
Purple.
Purple?
Dark purple.
Is that right?
There's a darker purple.
Okay. Alright, now, we get to see, it says m is unchanged, so the slope is the same this time, and the b is increased, so the b is going up. So which one of those is going up? Which one has a higher y-intercept? HX, okay, you can see it right up here. What color is that one?
Red.
Red in the book. Okay, now D, there's only one line left, so that should be simple, but let's make sure it's right. It says they want the same slope as the parent function, but they want the b, the y-intercept, to be decreased or lower. So is that the right one?
Yeah.
Yes, n of x. And what color is that one?
Purple.
Purple.
No.
Pink. It's a lighter purple. There's a dark purple and
Yeah.
light purple.
Oh.
I think the top one's blue. The one that they call purple first, I think it's blue.
It's not blue, Jared.
That is blue.
You
Let
see,
me-
you
let
see how
me-
blind Jared is?
That is blue, the other one's purple.
Purple, light pink.
Yeah,
light
it's
purple.
kind of purple and a lavenderish. I don't know.
It's more purple.
Blue.
It's more blue.
It's
The
dark
sky's
purple and light
purple,
purple,
guys.
that's fine. Alright.
This guy's purple.
Does everybody understand what they're talking about and what they're doing right there?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, go to 7. Now, this is kind of where the fun begins here. Alright? So, you're going to have, I don't know, a few different things that can happen. Okay? The first one is a, I don't want to start with that first. Let's just do it like this. Okay, so if you have y equals x, okay, if you have y equals x, that's your parent function. Is everybody good with that? Okay, so if we change this to like plus 6 or plus anything, okay, greater than 0, okay, we would say that this is a vertical translation up 6. had some sort of subtraction, then we would say that is a vertical translation down 3. Because right now we're comparing everything to the parent function. So the parent function would be y equals x. So if I say y equals x plus 6, I'm translating it up 6. If I say x minus 3, I'm translating it down 3. Okay, does that make sense? Alright, now, if I have, what is it we changed right here?
The y-intercept.
Right. So if we're changing the y-intercept, that means you're going to have a translation, either up or down. Okay? If you're changing the slope, there's a couple things that can happen. Okay, actually, yeah, we'll see. So, if the slope is greater than 1, okay, if the slope is greater than 1, you're going to have a vertical stretch. Whoops, can't spell. Vertical stretch by whatever number it is.
So if it's like 5, it would be
Okay,
stretch
right.
by 5.
So if I had y equals 5x, then yes, you would say a vertical stretch by 5. Okay. Now, if your slope is between 0 and 1. Okay, what are the numbers between 0 and 1?
Fraction.
Fractions, yes. Okay. Oh Lord, no. Alright, so fractions, okay, your fractions and decimals, I guess, if it's already typed out or written for you. But anytime you're graphing, I assure you, you want to make it a fraction. So if it's between 0 and 1, you're going to have a vertical shrink. By whatever the number is. Okay, so if you have y equals 2/3 x, you would say vertical shrink by 2/3. Does that make sense? So if we have the numbers between 0 and 1, we have the numbers bigger than 1, what's the only other kind of numbers left?
Negative numbers.
Negative numbers. Okay, so if you have a negative number, okay, which means the m is less than 0, okay, negative numbers. Okay, it is a reflection. Reflection across the y-axis. Okay, it's a reflection across the y-axis. So you got these two things. If you're changing the y-intercept, and you've got these 2 or 3 things if you're changing the slope. Okay, now the negative, just throwing a negative in front, okay, then that's the reflection. If you have numbers bigger than 1, it's a stretch. If you have numbers less than 1, then or between 0 and 1, then that is a shrink. Okay?
So if it's negative, is just a reflection across the y-axis? You don't even put your numbers in there?
Well, it could be more than one of these. Like it could be just one, or it could be both, or it could be all three. Like there could be 3 different things that you would have to write. We're about to do some examples. Okay, does everybody have this written down? Alright. Alright, so now, remember, we're still comparing everything to the parent function. So if I'm comparing it to the parent function, that's f of x equals x. Okay? So the first thing I have is this negative in front. So that negative means I have a what?
Shrink.
A reflection across the y-axis.
Reflection. Okay? So I would say reflection across the y-axis. Now, I also have a plus 9. So the plus 9 means I have a what?
Vertical stretch line, right?
Vertical what?
Stretch.
Nope.
Translation.
Translation, because that's the y-intercept. A vertical translation up 9. Okay, what about number 9? Gx equals 1/4 x. I have what?
Vertical
Vertical
shrink
stretch.
by 1/4.
3.
Vertical shrink by 1/4.
Oh, almost 28.
Now, if you can think about it like this, like I don't know if you think about it this way, but if you have like a rope, okay, and it's at a slope of 1, if you are stretching it, making it steeper, okay, then it's going to go like this, right? You can think about it if it's smaller, like it's like shrinking, like you're mashing it down, because now the slope is going to go from here's 1, here's a stretch, here's a shrink. It's like you're just kind of going, mashing it down. Okay? Alright, so now we get down to 11. We got all of this going on. Okay, so what's the first thing you see?
A negative.
Negative, so that means what?
Reflection across the y-axis.
Okay, reflection. So reflection across the y-axis. Then you have what?
A fraction.
A fraction, so that is what?
Vertical
Vertical
shrink by
shrink by
3/4.
Vertical shrink by 3/4. Then you have plus 5, so that is what?
Vertical translation of 5.
Vertical translation of 5. Okay, does that make sense? So, you could have just one thing, you could have more than one thing, you could have all 3. There you go. Alright, number 13. The directions are on the previous page with 12, so I'll scroll to them if you've already turned the page. It says use the parent function and the description of the transformation to write the new function. Alright, so that means when we get to this, we don't actually have to graph anything, we're just going to write the new function. Okay, so now I'm reflecting this graph. I'm not going from the parent function anymore. I'm going from f of x equals x minus 1. Okay? So if I'm going to reflect it, what does that mean I have to do?
Make it negative.
make it negative. So let's just say I call it g of x. If I call it g of x, I've got to make this negative. So negative, negative x, because I'm reflecting it. And then it says I want to translate it 4 units down. Now remember, I'm translating it from here. I'm not translating it from the origin. So if I'm already at -1 and I go 4 more units down, where am I at? -5. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, 15. The number of chaperones on a field trip must include 1 teacher for every 4 students, plus a total of 2 parents. The function describing the number of chaperones for a trip of x students is f of x equals 1/4 x plus 2. How will the graph change if the number of parents is reduced to 0? Okay, so that's the first question. How would the graph change if the number of parents is reduced to 0? So what is it we're talking about changing?
The y-intercept.
The y-intercept. So the graph would do what?
It would go down to, it would have a vertical translation of down to.
Right. Okay. So for this first part, you would say vertical translation down to. Okay. Then it says if the number of teachers is raised to 1 for every 3 students. Okay? If it goes from 1 to 4, if it goes from 1 to 3, what would happen?
It would be steeper.
It would be steeper. Does everybody see that? Okay. The graph would be steeper because slope increases from 1/4 to 1/3. We all hopefully know and remember that 1/3 is bigger than 1/4, right? If we're gonna take a pie or a pizza and we're real hungry, you would much rather have 1/3 of it than 1/4 of it if you're real hungry. Okay, some of you would just eat the whole thing and not even think about your friends, but does that make sense to everybody, how you're writing those questions out, how you're answering them?
So if it was like going from 1/3 to 1/4, you'd say the graph would be less steep because the
Yes.
slope decreases from 1/3 to 1/4.
Correct. Alright, so now we're at 17. Okay, they're going to ask us to do a couple of different things. Okay, it says a salesperson earns a base monthly salary of $2,000 plus a 10% commission on sales. Salesperson's monthly income is given by the function I of S equals 0.1 S plus 2,000, where S is the sales in dollars that the person makes. Sketch a graph to illustrate each situation using the graph of I of S equals 0.1 S plus 2,000 as a reference. Okay, the salesperson's base salary is increased. Okay, the salesperson's base salary is increased. So somebody besides Jared, tell me what that means and how I would graph it.
It would be steeper.
Where is the base salary? What number?
2,000.
2,000?
Y-intercept.
So what is the 2000?
Y-intercept.
The y-intercept. So if I change the y-intercept, what is staying the same?
The slope.
The slope. So that means it's not going to be steeper because the slope stays the same. What's going to happen?
It's gonna go like this.
What?
No.
Easton?
Speak.
Kate?
It'll either be, you either make less money a month or more money a month, depending on which way you.
Let me start with this.
It says the sale, part A, question A says the salesperson's base salary is increased.
Oh, his money will increase.
His money's going to increase. What's it going to look like on the graph? What am I changing? What am I moving?
The Y.
The y-intercept. So what has to stay the same? The slope. So the slope stays the same. I just got to pick any number up here I want. And then, let's say I go up to 2200. You can pick whatever you want. But you've got to draw a line that has the same slope. Okay? It can be as big an increase as you want. Alright? Now, part B says the salesperson's commission rate is decreased. Now, I need you to think about something. Even though it's decreased, it's not going to be below what?
Zero.
Zero. He's not going to sell something and they take money away from him. No one would take a job like that. Like you ask me to sell t-shirts, I sell them, and then you take money away from me? That doesn't make sense. Okay, so you got to have something bigger than zero. Okay, so it's just got to be something where the slope is a little bit not as steep. Alright, you got the evens for homework. Isaiah, I hope you learned good today.